Okay, what's up guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about how you guys can get buttery smooth handheld shots without any gimbals or stabilizers or anything, just your camera and your hands and your body. So let's get into it. This video has been sponsored by the awesome people over at Skillshare, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later on in this video. For now, let's get into some of the first tips. For any of you guys that watch quite a lot of my content, you might know that I am actually quite a big fan of gimbals and I use them for the majority of my projects and cinematic sequences and B-roll. But I know that a lot of you guys don't necessarily have access to gimbals. Maybe you can't afford it, or maybe some of you guys just might not want to be using a gimbal for that particular shoot. Maybe you just want to be light and nimble. All you're going to carry is your camera, you run around. Whatever the reason might be, these are some of the techniques that I use whenever I do find myself shooting handheld video, and these are some of the ways that I make sure that I do get that buttery smooth video with zero accessories. So let's get into them. First thing that we're going to talk about is just a couple of things about the tech side of things and a little bit about your gear. One of the things you guys should obviously look out for is if your camera or lens has image stabilization. So a lot of the cameras these days have IBIS, which is in-body image stabilization. If your camera does have that, of course be using that. Another thing to look out for is if your lens has image stabilization. So if your camera or lens does support this, make sure to hit it on, because this is going to help a huge amount, especially in those little micro jitters and the little handheld like fine shakes. That's something that you guys can easily avoid. If some of your lenses have IS and some of them don't, if you are going to be shooting handheld, try keep that in mind and maybe opt for one of your lenses that do have image stabilization. The next thing that we're going to talk about while we're on the topic of lenses is your focal length. So something you want to keep in mind, that the wider your lens is, the easier it's going to be able to make it seem like it's stable. As soon as your lens gets way longer and more zoomed in, you have to think about even the tiniest move here is going to be hugely affecting your shot way down there. Once you punch it up onto a big screen or something like that, the tiniest little movement while you're hand holding is gonna hugely affect the shot. So ideally you want to be using a wider lens, especially if you're struggling to do the smooth shots. Maybe once you've mastered the wider lenses, you can start moving up to some lenses like 50mm, maybe even an 85mm. And if you're doing more simple movements, it's not as hard as you might think to do really smooth, stable shots even on those longer lenses. So keep those couple of things in mind when you're choosing your lens. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is your frame rate. One of the hugest things that helps me when I'm trying to shoot handheld cinematic footage is that I shoot in a higher frame rate and I slow my footage down. This is going to help so much. Once you slow your footage down, it gets rid of all those little micro jitters and it makes it way easier to get smooth shots. I like to shoot at either 60 FPS or even 120 FPS, and I can slow that footage down, and once I do that, those little movements are not nearly as noticeable and it helps so much. If you guys need your footage to be played in real time, a cool little trick is to film your footage in 30 FPS, and once you're over in your editing suite, just convert that down to 24 FPS, and it ever so slightly slows down the footage. Not enough to be noticeable to the viewer that it looks like slow motion, but it is enough just to take out a lot of those small shakes and smooth out that footage a little bit. So that is a really neat trick that I really like to use. Something about shooting in a much higher frame rate as well is that even in some of your movements, if you do a pan forward or something, there might be a lot of shakes in there, but once you've slowed that clip down to something like 25%, there is a likely chance that there might be a little piece even in between the shakes that is going to be a really nice smooth piece of footage, and I'll just pick that one out, and then you're almost guaranteed to have a really nice little piece of footage somewhere in there, even if a lot of it is actually shaky. Now that we have the tech stuff out of the way, let's get into the actual shooting techniques that I like to use to get smooth handheld footage. Just before we do get into that, I wanted to take a quick second to thank the sponsors of this video, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of different courses across dozens of different creative skills. Whether you want to fuel your curiosity, creativity, or even your career, Skillshare is the perfect place to keep you learning and thriving. One of my favorite courses lately is Brandon Wolfel's Instagram worthy photography, where he covers his shooting, editing and posting process. Skillshare is also super affordable, with their annual plan turning out to be less than $10 a month. All of the awesome people over at Skillshare were also kind enough to hook me up with a link, so if you guys sign up Using my link down in the description, you get 2 months completely free with no obligations to the website. So go check it out. Go check out the Brandon Wolfel one if you guys are into photography and Instagram. And thanks again to all the amazing people over at Skillshare for sponsoring this video and supporting this channel. Let's get back into those tips. So one of the first things you want to do, and something that's pretty obvious, but you'll be surprised how many people you see not doing this, is hold your camera with 2 hands. I like to hold the second hand kind of under the lens and my other hand right on the grip. I don't have a camera to demonstrate for you guys right now because it's busy on the tripod, but hold it under there and your other hand on here. Something that I find is quite important is, instead of holding your camera out like this, you want to tuck in your elbows and hold your camera really close to you. That's going to just reduce some of the shake that you're going to get from it having out here on the end of your arms. Another thing you can try do is use 3 points of contact. So one thing is you could actually put it flat against your chest. Another might be that you could use your eyepiece and put your camera right up against your eye, and that is going to act as another point of contact. One of my favorite ways to do this is by using a camera strap, and by having that camera strap wrapped around your neck, you can pull it tight and it creates that 3rd point of contact. And this is one of my favorite ways to get smooth shots because I feel like it makes a huge difference, and you still have the freedom of moving that camera all around how you want, whether it's up or down or moving forward or whatever. What you want to try do is limit your movements and the way that you move. So what I like to do is hold my camera up close like we mentioned and kind of rock on your feet rather than actually taking steps. So you can rock from side to side or forward and back like this, but if you actually don't take those steps, that's when the impact happens and those jolts happen. So try and avoid that and just do movements like that. You can also do them up and down, but by locking your hands off like this and using your legs to move around, your camera almost becomes part of your body like this, and you can use it to move around like this or up and down, but you're not actually going like this, and you're not walking around and using your feet to move yourself around. Okay, and then to contradict everything that I've just spoken about, if you do want to walk around and actually get moving shots, instead of tucking your arms in like this, which a lot of people will still tell you to do, I actually find that sticking your arms out a bit and getting your hands away from you actually works out way better, because now, if you think about it, what's going to be happening is all of the impact and all the shake is going to be coming from your feet while you're walking, and if you're holding that camera against your body and making it as one with your body like we spoke about, you're actually going to be absorbing all of those impacts, and it's going to end up not working nearly as well. By separating it, your body can absorb a lot of the impact, and your arms are almost going to act like shock absorbers, and your camera's going to be out here, and I almost try hold it lightly, and almost like the same way if you guys have ever used a Steadicam, where you would hold it very lightly but still kind of secure. I like to do that while I'm holding it. The next thing to do is what I've heard been called a ninja walk, and basically what it is keeping your legs bent and kind of doing a heel to toe motion, and you kind of look ridiculous while doing this, but whatever, who cares about what people might be thinking of you while you're shooting, as long as you're getting those super smooth shots. So you want to hold your camera out like this, kind of lightly, and then just heel to toe and walk along with your legs being bent, and try just really focus on smooth walking and slow walking, and doing this with the other tricks that we mentioned early on in this video, like having a wide lens. I'm almost certain that you won't be able to pull off really smooth walking shots with a telephoto lens, so a wide lens is essential for this, and then those slower frame rates are really going to come into play when you are doing these walking shots, because between steps or something like that is where you can cut out that really smooth, nice piece that's going to look buttery smooth and perfect. So keep that in mind while you're doing these walking ones. Otherwise, tuck in the arms and just be doing movements with your feet without any steps. Now that you've filmed your cinematic section using all of these techniques that we've mentioned, and you are back home, but your footage might not have turned out as smooth as you were hoping for, there is one thing that you can do, and that is, once you get all your footage over into Premiere, you can use something called Warp Stabilizer. You throw this onto your clip and it's going to digitally try and stabilize that footage by cropping in just a little bit. This is a really amazing tool, but you do need to look out for some of your footage, as it sometimes does a weird like jelly effect. So once you put it on, just make sure it's not doing that. And another thing to mention is, if you guys did shoot in a higher frame rate like we spoke about earlier, and now you've slowed down your clip once you're in Premiere Pro, Premiere is not actually going to allow you to add Warp Stabilizer onto that clip. So what you need to do is just right click on that clip and nest it, and then you will be able to throw warp stabilizer on and you'll be good to go. Here's a little cinematic section that I filmed yesterday at sunset. It's nothing special or amazing, but I did film the whole thing in like less than 10 minutes, and I only used my hands with zero accessories, and these are how stable some of my shots turned out. So check it out and see what you guys think. Okay, that is it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed that little cinematic section, and I hope that all of these tips will be useful to you guys next time you find yourself without a gimbal or any stabilization and you're looking to film those buttery smooth B-roll shots. Remember to check out the link in the description for 2 free months on Skillshare. And if you guys enjoyed this video, hit like. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. It's much appreciated, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.